Hello, everybody. Glad to have you with us tonight. All right, starting off with 30 people, it'll go to a couple of hundred here in a minute. Anyway, so we have Rick Garner with us tonight. He's executive producer of Unexplained Cases, which is they've been doing interesting videos and interesting investigations all the way back to 1999. So Lala found Rick, and we got here on.
He found us.
Oh, he found us. Okay, great. Well, she usually finds a great yes, but I'm glad you found us.
I saw. I was like, yes, we have.
Yeah. Okay, that's good. That's good, and we're glad you're here. But our audience hasn't had a chance to go to your website, I'm sure, or look at a couple of your videos. So please tell our audience about you and your team.
Sure. Well, you're right. Basically, see, that's where you get the opposite of like where you're pointing to, kind of thing there. So part of the our new logo was to reference when we were established. Basically, the story would go back to 1999 when myself and Darren Dito were at the CBS affiliate in Jackson, Mississippi. And Darren's background is definitely being a reporter, broadcast journalist. Mine more on the production side, radio, TV. And one of the things that I know that y'all and anyone who's basically watching this can relate to is around Halloween, broadcast stations love to do little stories, little spooky stories, and they go out to some place and interview somebody and do this and do that, and everybody, it's kind of expected. So of course we've done those, and we did a little bit of a deeper dive into like some quick investigations that were in the area. And afterwards we stepped back and was like, you know what if we just really went full on investigative mode with this? And what if we could do this monthly, like not just yearly, but monthly? And what if these could be even longer? And broadcast stories, 90 seconds is basically a feature. So usually if you're looking at a newscast, 15, 20, 30, that's fairly average. And so for us, we have to basically have a whole block, as it's referred to, which is basically up to 5 minutes, which was really very, very respectful of the news director to give us that opportunity. And so we started just working on stories and developed them over the month. And so they were, trying to push all the production value, interviews, getting deep into whether it was conspiracies, UFOs, hauntings, whatever.
Cool.
And so we did that for, like I said, Darren and I started it. Darren moved on, as reporters typically do, always moving to a different market. I worked with 2 other reporters. So that was basically to about 2004. And that's when it got shut down, because even I moved up here to the DC area, basically, to work for Channel 9 and build their online department. And so I never really continued it forward. And Darren kind of did the same thing at his other stations, right? He didn't carry the Unexplained brand or anything, but he still did, spooky stories. And eventually, about 2019 there, 2018 actually, we started talking about like, wouldn't it be nice to put the band back together? That classic idea of like, it's been a while. What if we did something with this? And what if we just actually took that whole idea and rebranded it, brought it online? So we started basically going out to Wickenburg, Arizona, which at the time he and his family were in Arizona. Went up to Ohio, basically just collected a bunch of different stories and started rolling them out in 2019 as Unexplained Cases. And so since then, we had what we refer to as the episodics, about the 30 minutes or less episodes, YouTube videos. COVID, of course, came along. We went live. So, very familiar with this format. We were doing that through COVID, basically. And we're working with Miriam Faresh and everything. Since we couldn't get into locations, we did it live. But then once basically COVID wrapped up, we wanted to try to get back out into the field, do the investigation part, because really making episodes, I'm an editor at heart, so love doing that, and that's what we got back to doing, and that sort of brings us up to today.
Well,
Pretty
that's
cool.
great. So, tell us about the mansion show you guys did. I was looking at that and did not have time to go all the way through it, but that looked really interesting.
Well, now which particular
It's the one just before the drone story.
Oh,
Before-
so yes. So basically, the most recent one, Kings Park, was that what we're
I
referring
think,
to?
yeah, yeah.
Yeah. So Kings Park, that is in Maryland, and so that basically is a location that's the kind of spot that I love, meaning that when you can interview a bunch of folks that are currently employed, previously employed, who all have had weird experiences, unusual experiences, and for them to be able to tell their story, you know, uh, previously, well, like when we started this, I think I was a little bit more concise with like interviews, where a lot of network approaches is basically you really kind of chop up an interview, you make it quick, you cut out a lot of things. Our mission is basically to preserve history by documenting the strange, paranormal, and unexplained. And so for me to really be able to document something, I think it has to lean more into, okay, let's have as much of this story as we can. And
Mhm.
so these employees were all just sharing of just crazy experiences. The only thing that was lacking would be I would have loved to talk to some campers, because apparently there were campers who have been at Kings Park there for summer camp, a YMCA, who they had very, in some cases, unsettling experiences. And one example I think of would be a child who had gotten sick, was being driven in a car to basically to the front of the camp of Kings Park to be able to meet the parents. And the driver of the car, who was one of the individuals who was interviewed in that piece, was looking back in her rearview mirror and saw a mass, as it was described, blacker than black, basically following them all the way to the entrance of the park.
Wow.
That entity, for lack of a better label, was referred to as the Black Mass. And apparently, the park has several characters, if you will. There's that. There's Red Eye, who,
Oh,
who, as you can denote, apparently he has red eyes. And I can imagine if I was like a 12-year-old or whatever, basically looking out a window and seeing two red eyes out in the dark, basically staring at me.
Mommy.
Exactly.
Mommy.
It's being like, I kind of got to come home, please. So and it's one of those things to where I'm looking forward to going back, because you hear these stories, and that's like I said, what I want to do, and what I think kind of makes us a little bit different as a team and as a product, I guess, if you will, is by interviewing folks and you're recording this, you're preserving history, you're documenting experiences. And the reason that that's very important to us is, like, I have interviewed folks who, in one instance, this gentleman passed away. He basically, this was the Camp Van Dorn series from Mississippi, which was basically a bit of a conspiracy, and we can unpack that a little bit if we have time. But bottom line would be, this gentleman, this was during World War II. So obviously he was up in age, and he was it. I didn't actually record him, but because we were part of the CBS family, I got he lived in California. I got that affiliate to interview Mr. Laplace. And since that was a recording, his son eventually, his grandson eventually came back and was like, hey, is there any way that I can get a copy of that? Because, the stories that he's sharing there, we never bothered to record that. And that's like the only example of it. And I'm like, of course you can, because I'm not going to charge for that or anything, because that to me is what makes that very important. Is
Right.
like, here's
agree.
this recording that they otherwise wouldn't have had of a family member.
Right. So we're in Maryland too,
Yes.
and I like to ask everybody that comes on here, what's the freakiest or scariest or most intense experience you've ever had? But also, I used to live by Loch Raven Reservoir. Have you ever?
I've
That
heard about that. Yes.
has
Mhm.
some weird stuff there. Anyway, okay.
Yeah. Yeah. No, not at all. See that, and that's one of the things too. And sidebar, obviously being in Maryland, we want to be able to get as many of these stories here. It's easier to get to. You can deploy your resources, but of course, finding stories is not as easy as some people would like to think, right? So it's this will lead into your original question too, because meaning, like, I think what folks don't necessarily appreciate is, if you've had a paranormal experience, I feel like most folks basically, I'm gonna keep that to myself, because
Right.
Yep.
because I, for one, am not even really sure what I experienced.
Right.
Was it what I thought it was? Was I imagining it? Was, all these different questions come into mind. So you've got all this self-doubt. So then, kind of like with anything else, if you build up the courage to be able to share it, well, then at that point, is that person going to accept you? Are they going to think you're a nutcase? You're a weirdo? What's wrong with you? What are you smoking? Whatever the case may be. So the next level is for an individual to feel comfortable enough to share something on a recording.
Right.
And which is why we always talk to folks to be like, listen, I can protect your identity. I can conceal your face. We don't even have to shoot that. I can, put you in silhouette. I can change your voice. I let people know that as an option, because the reality is you're trying to capture the information, and there are multiple ways to protect someone's identity.
Right.
But possibly the freakiest type of thing, because I think that's always the case, even though, I'm a documentarian, a researcher, kind of look more as the science of it. At the end of the day, I mean, let's not, mince any words here. There's certainly
Yeah.
a degree of like, hey, what's something spooky? We all like that. We all a bit of adrenaline junkies. I can think of, I like to use the example, and this goes back to Mississippi. This goes back to when Darren and I first started things, and this was one of the episodes that got dumped into our 30-minute special. And this is in 2001. It was called Unexplained Haunts. We had the privilege of getting an Emmy for this guy, a regional Emmy. So
Fantastic.
Wow.
I'm always, I have to brag about it. It's not about me. It's about the whole team and the editing
That's
of it.
awesome.
So it was pretty cool. But there was a place that was referred to as Marihope Mansion, Meridian, Mississippi.
I know that place.
Fabulous. Not often do I hear anyone who knows it, so that's awesome. And it's one of those to where we picked it because it was visually interesting. It's not necessarily a classic design of an antebellum mansion, but it is a mansion. Certainly was in state, and something that you wouldn't have the pleasure of happening today. But I think a little bit of the cred would have been part of a TV station that was known. Also, times were different back in 2000, 2001 when we were shooting this. But the people who work there, the couple of little old ladies who basically were there, were like, here's the keys. We don't stay here after 5 o'clock.
Wow.
See
Just
ya.
be sure to lock up. And I'm like, wow, okay, because it was like, they didn't charge us for that. It was basically, we wanted to stay the night. They were fine with it, trusted us, and they, wouldn't happen today, even in the South, I don't think. But so we were staying there, and here we are. We have this whole place to ourselves with these stories of footsteps, doors slamming, objects being moved. I mean, kind of almost like your cliche list of things. And it was Darren, myself, and our photographer Rob Ruffin. And so we were there, and a bit of it is kind of like, you almost wonder, is this a bunch of stories? Nothing's really happening. Yeah, it's kind of spooky. We're doing EVP sessions. We're taking photographs. We're doing some of the traditional things at the time, which are still used today. And what became, I think, a bit of the calm before the storm, if you will, was we all basically had dozed off. And I was
Oh.
glad that I had a recording going on in this. You couldn't see anything. I wasn't using IR. I'm sure it was around, but it wasn't something as easy to get to as today. But there was enough light so you could kind of get an idea of the room. We were all taking a nap. And I just remembered coming to and wondering, like, what are they talking about and what was that noise? It wasn't like it was crazy or anything, but Darren was like, what was that? Or actually Rob was that, and Darren was like, yeah, that's what woke me up. And I'm like, what did I even hear? Well, you watch the video and it sounds like somebody is just pounding on the walls, basically.
Oh,
Mm-hmm.
It's like a pap, 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 and then there's a conversation because we're awake. But as things tend to happen, at some point we decided to take a break and left cameras rolling. We just went down to the gas station to like get some snacks, sodas, whatever, come back. And again, not as easy today as where you can step aside and just watch something. This was a take back to the station and review the cameras and everything. And there is doors slamming.
Oh
Like-
yeah.
oh my fucking God. Sorry.
Like, like 1,000%. There's no other way that you can tell me that is not a door slamming. And we even basically verified at the time, keeping in mind we didn't know that sound had happened, but we just did a search to be like, is everything the way we left it? If a door was closed, is it still closed? If it was open, is it still open? Doing all those type of things. And there was no evidence of anything that would have indicated that a door had been slammed shut. Basically, everything was the way we left it.
Mhm.
But that several knocks, a little bit of interference with the cameras, and I'm like, so you guys just waited until we left to show off, basically, is what you're telling me. So, okay, that's fair. It's fine. But at least you showed off, because then you
Right.
just had all this craziness. So, the startling being woken up and then basically just kind of that type of activity, haven't been in anything that I'd ever consider myself like, too often these shows are people running around basically, and I'm just like, it's great entertainment. It's not good investigations though.
Right. It's true.
Yeah, my hometown is just across the border in Clark County.
Mm-hmm.
So not come over the river, go 40 miles, and that's where I grew up, is in Grove Hill, Alabama.
There you go. Yeah,
In
there's
the Meridian, many times we used to do Christmas shopping and other stuff over there. It was a nice place.
yeah.
Weird.
I never went to this mansion, but I knew where it was.
Oh.
It was infamous.
Yes.
Oh.
Yeah, and it's one of those that you could say is kind of unassuming. You look at it and it wouldn't necessarily immediately say that it's haunting. Although this is where I get into intuition, basically, because I feel like I can look at a building and be like, it's not the level of like I'm seeing something or someone or whatever, but I can look and be like, okay, there's a story, or I don't get any reading off of that whatsoever. But it's like you could almost look at that and it's like there's something to it. But
Oh yeah, she can look at the house and go, oh yeah, that's got a few in it.
Well, when my son's father was still alive, we were shopping for a house, and he wasn't really into this stuff, but he knew. He would ask me, "Okay, what do you feel? Is this the one?" And I'd be like, "They don't want us here," because it's, even if you don't want to say psychic, it's an animal instinct that you just pick up something that ain't right. That's
right.
So.
Exactly. And everybody has that intuition. It's just whether or not someone chooses to lean into it or not, basically. And it's kind of like I look at it as like a muscle, where it's like, well, if you work it and you go down that, then yeah. And truly, also some people, like, not everybody's going to be Kobe Bryant or Michael Johnson or whatever playing basketball. Basically, one could play basketball but not be to that level. But yeah, everyone has that ability that
Good
built
analogy.
in. Hmm.
Want to say hello to Mr. B. Good to have you here, Terrence.
Oh yes, hello everybody. Well, you got a whole bunch of hellos coming in.
Well, it's it's
Almost
200 people are watching, so I knew it would get there. It'll might even go a little bit higher. We tend to get about that many, but more look later because people are busy on weeknights.
For sure. Well, I appreciate everyone being here.
Yep, that's great. And we bring the people in who are interested in the odd.
Yeah.
So in this house, when we moved in, we had knocks and bangs and things unplugged and so forth. So I got a camera that I was going to put outside, and one in the back and one in the front. But I put it in the foyer, looking at the front door to test it out and make sure it was working right.
Mm-hmm.
So we left it there, and it goes into IR night mode when the lights are off, and on day mode when the lights are on. So it's 2:30 in the morning. It's dark. We're all asleep, and suddenly you hear dunk, 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 and the light switch goes on, and it goes from night mode to day mode, and something not quite visible, but you could see was there, walk in front of the camera, and a voice is recorded by the microphone on the camera going, "Hello, Xander," in a Class A electronic voice phenomenon.
Wow.
You can tell the rest.
Well, Xander is my son, and the voice was I was with him for 15 years. It was his father's. It really was his voice. And he
Wow.
would like to joke around and pretend he had a radio voice when he was joking around. And that's what it sounded. It was amazing.
Hello, Xander.
So
We have that evidence on
Yeah.
on Facebook. People can go listen to it, see the camera go from night mode to day mode, the thing walking, and the voice. And it is a 100% clear EVP.
You should come around here sometime. There's the whole area is just.
Oh my goodness, Native American stuff all over here, and
Would love to. Absolutely. Yeah, because
we have. Well, we went to the cemetery.
Mhm.
Decided just, I feel like we should park. Let's park. I can't remember if it was her or me, but it was both of us. And she started taking pictures. Orbs all over the graveyard, stuff zooming around. And then we noticed that up the street, across a railroad crossing, with the crossing up here and a rail there, and it was a half moon, perfectly framed by the trees and the railroad thing over the road.
Mhm.
And she takes a picture because it is a gorgeous picture.
Right.
But right above the big thing over the road, there was green energy that drew, looks like a tadpole.
Mm-hmm.
And it was just wild. And then we got 3 of those pictures in a row. It was pretty amazing. Yeah, so you would like it, Harvard. And Harvard of Grace is full of, people that went out on the water. People had a hard time sometimes on the water, and maybe didn't come back from the water. So there's lots of old churches, cemeteries. This place is interesting.
Nice. Well, see, and that's definitely an area we haven't focused on. Like I mentioned earlier, it's like there's kind of that. I guess I look at it as like you basically you could look up and research stories, but then it's kind of a case of like, okay, can we find people to talk to? Because it's real easy, and there's nothing against this approach. It's real easy to go into an abandoned place or go into a cemetery, to go to some place you can get into and do a location. Nothing wrong with that. To me, though, it's trying to find stories, basically, which you're talking about a story that someone, they've experienced that. They know the urban legend in some cases. That's why also we're more about quality than quantity, because, if that was the case, we'd be rolling out stories every week or at least every month, going back to even when we were, Unexplained, basically, at Channel 12. I mean, that was where I always had a deadline, stuff like that. And that's where I realized, the reality is, got a job, got a life, got a family, not a content creator. That's not even really why we're interested in this. This is more about trying to help folks, trying to help the living, trying to help the dead, trying to preserve history. And that's not necessarily going to be on a timeline.
Right.
That's just something to where it's when it happens, it happens. I like to say these stories edit themselves. I may like there's two things we're working on right now that are no less than 4-year projects. They are 4-year investigations at this point. And I could stop and go ahead and put it together, or, and I've actually started working on one of them. This is basically the town of Sykesville. Y'all may be familiar
Yep.
with that. And Savage Mill. You may have heard of that. That's in the town of Savage, close to Columbia. In both of those cases, so many layers, and so it's just kind of becoming one of those to where, all right, this will happen when it needs to happen. But that's why it's like it's good that I'm not basically being bankrolled by a network or something like that. Otherwise, I might be bald from stress or something.
Can you say what, if you can't say it, it's fine, but can you say what the topic is with that in particular in that area?
Yeah, I mean, so what's interesting, basically go with both of them. I mean, Savage Mill, a little bit more simple in the sense that it's kind of like with a lot of mills around Maryland. I mean, there's probably mills, and frankly, every state has had a mill of some kind. This being a textile one, the what I can always appreciate is the fact that a lot of these have been lost to time, and all you have is ruins, if anything. But in this case, this one was converted to a shopping mall, basically, in essence. So it's very quaint. You've got food, you've got dining, you've got retail space, but you have all of I'm not going to say all because I certainly haven't spoken to all. You have many folks who have been there, shop owners, who have had some crazy experiences. And this ranges from literal visual full apparition sightings to physical touch, taps, to, in one case, something crawling on the ceiling, which I'm not a huge fan of those type of situations.
She hates when that happens.
I love those stories, but it just, I know it's real, so it freaks me out.
Yeah,
Well,
she's had all of that, so she's freaked out.
I never seen that though, thank God, because I would have passed out.
this is well, me too, because I'm like, and this was one of those to where I heard the story. I haven't been able to get the interview, so I kind of lump it in there to have like the range of weirdness. But it's when you can get EVPs, or what I find incredibly fascinating, is ghost smells. And some may not think that's a thing, or may not have experienced it. I've actually only experienced it twice in the tenure of doing this.
I know when my mom's here, my left ear rings and I smell her perfume.
Okay. The first time I experienced it was in Cheneyville, Louisiana, at Lloyd Hole Plantation. Beautiful property, beautiful working plantation. Again, love the fact that something that's it's from the 1800s, it's survived and it's thriving today, kind of thing. But walking around there and basically realizing, okay, you're being followed by an entity, or the entity is basically wanting you to follow them, because this perfume, this kind of like Chloe type of smell that's nowhere else, just keeps shifting, flittering about almost. And I intentionally use the word flittering because in one of our investigations at Savage Mill, same thing happened, where there was a very distinct smell of a perfume that was being picked up in multiple locations. Nobody was wearing it. It wasn't like, oh, it was just that's got to be some piece of clothing or something or whatever. No, the fact that it was in the back corner of this store, which was, basically, I would get the square footage wrong, but it's quite huge. It's an antique store, which that ought to tell you something.
Cool.
And then it's on the other side, and it disappears, and it comes back, and you're just like, okay. And then if you also could get a little EVP action, basically, of some communication of like, in that case, my other team member's name being said was like, hey, Mike, you've got yourself a girlfriend, apparently. I don't know what's going on, but I mean, let's have a connection here. So,
Oh my God.
and then briefly, with Sykesville, I mean, I love old towns. I always have. Sykesville has an amazing main street. But you have an area that has got hauntings. It's got the Sykesville monster, apparently in the 70s, the sighting
Really?
of Bigfoot, and you've
Oh,
got UFOs. You at
yeah.
least have a trifecta going on.
Nice.
But also you have history. You have the Patapsco River, running
Oh,
through
yeah.
there. You have all those nice little variables that are like,
Been a town or two flooded by the Patapsco.
yes, sir.
My favorite bar was flooded 3 times so I had a friend that my best friend lived in Clarksville, and I had regular business, let's say down 32 and across 295.
Mm-hmm.
Wink, wink. And we would go and have beer and sandwiches at that bar.
Mm-hmm.
And it flooded 3 times. But that town, I went, if this town isn't haunted, no town in Maryland's haunted.
Right.
It had all these old buildings and all that other stuff. It was a beautiful little town.
Oh yeah. And then in this case, like you mentioned Ellicott City or this one. I mean, the rivers, when it changes, that affects things, and of course that can happen, and it can wash out things. And now, maybe the town's on one side and it moves to the other side, and
the bar was on Main Street in Ellicott.
Okay.
I had experience in Ellicott City with a couple of friends. I'll tell you another time, but yeah.
Oh,
I got
nice.
some of the stories if you want to.
See, now we'll have to open up a whole other treasure trove here, basically, because once I guess I was mentioning earlier, I don't know if it was yesterday or the day before, it's like, well, you guys are in Maryland, okay, well then we got plenty of shop to talk here, basically. It's
Yeah.
Oh yeah. The nice thing about her, it would be like going out with Amy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Because I mean, she'll walk into a place and she'll tell you what's going on and what's the deal and what's wrong with them, and touch stuff, and have the usual stuff that happens when you touch an object that belonged to somebody deceased. It's interesting.
Mm-hmm. I can imagine. I mean, it sounds like that's where I guess I'm certainly curious, basically, like there's different. And I can't rattle them all off. I mean, you think of clairvoyance, and there's like 4 Claras, as I guess one says, and I'm like, what abilities then do you lean into?
I'm a little bit of everything. So I'm not superb at one thing.
Mm-hmm.
But I didn't know. I thought this was normal. I can see, smell, hear. I'll feel living people's pain. I can touch metal objects and get stuff. It's just, but my dad, he was like that too. So I think it's just
it's genetic with her. But
wow.
If she is asked or is pushed by the spirit to talk to somebody about their deceased relative, friend, whatever,
I'll give a message.
She'll get, and then after that, I just stand back and watch because it is amazing. Let me give you my favorite story. She's going to be bored because I tell it all the time.
There's some rolling of the eyes.
Go out, and we went to Bob Evans.
Okay.
And it was like right before closing, and everybody was in there having a special meal because of the time of year it was. And then she gets this urge to talk to our waitress. And so she starts talking to her, says, look, I don't want anything, but here's what's going on. And she gave her a reading right on the spot. And that little waitress went, and told everybody in the restaurant. And one by one, she went through them, and not one of them left without tears in their eyes. And it moved, and
Wow.
it was a wild experience.
Wow.
On Thanksgiving.
That's on Thanksgiving.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Wow. That's
I'm
that.
just weird.
Well, I mean, see, that's where, to me, that gift there, basically, it's like, I think, sometimes I think the gift can kind of be tainted a bit because my own personal opinion seems like a lot of folks may see all of this through the lens of like network shows, and it's kind of like with anything, it's like it's not reality because the
No.
moment the moment you have content involved.
If anybody wants to give us a network show, we'll say, yeah. No, I'm just kidding.
see, because you get under this deadline, and I mean that's why you have stuff that's faked. That's why you have stuff that's dramatized. I mean it's trying to make it good TV.
Can you imagine you're producing a psychic show or a ghost show,
Mhm.
and you go to this place because everybody said that's a good place to go.
Right.
And you're a psychic, and the other person, say me, is an investigator,
Mhm.
and you're the producer, and nothing happens.
Yep.
But you've got all that production money, time, etc.
Mhm.
They make stuff happen.
Exactly. And the only bonus in a way is the fact that in some cases, it may be appearing that it happened in one night, and it's because they stayed there a week. And it's
Right.
like, well, and the average Jane or Joe or us, we may have a few hours to pop in someplace. Something may happen, something may not. That's why I even have episodes where there's a moment where it's like, hey, here's documenting where there's nothing going on. And it's like, someone may say, why would you do that? Someone could click off. And I'm like, well, if they click off, they click off, basically, because to me, the whole point is it's like, this is reality. And this is just giving you a sample of what it is. We'll continue the story here shortly. But of course, in network, you only have finite amount of time. So it's got to be entertaining, and you got to be able to check off some boxes to accomplish something.
Have you come to an opinion on Mr. B's question? Interdimensional spirits, what are they?
That is maybe the $10,000 question there. So this is where me personally, I don't know, and that's why I think I'm driven to continually document these experiences and try to, I love the fact if I can actually make an unexplained case explained and close it, that's awesome. Haven't been able to do that. But if we would, I would note it. But I think I certainly lean into the idea that, like, for example, Bigfoot, to me is like, any, or swamp ape, or whatever, his multiple names. I immediately think of interdimensional for that situation.
Yes. I will
Because
tell you why.
okay.
I have several friends that do that, and then I looked at a few collections of evidence, and there are many sightings where they can find footprints. But how do you walk along the ground with only right-sided footprints? So that's like the left foot's in the other dimension and the right foot is in ours.
Right.
While I got Mr. B up, I want to everybody please thank Mr. B for writing putting together our intro video and our countdown. He did a great job.
Rock on, Mr. B.
Oh, he said, why would spirits wear clothing? That's a good
Better question, Mr. B. Why does everyone end up in their pajamas? I mean,
They spend a third of their life doing the same thing, sleeping.
Exactly. I mean, how many, lady in white, and so here's this, white nightgown, or and why is there white and blue and brown
Right.
You know, maybe sometimes. Well, actually, Lady in Black actually comes to mind because not sure if it was paranormal, but I'm sure you all may be familiar with the Bunnyman Bridge in
Yeah.
Virginia.
Well,
So
Mhm.
one of the stories that we have, and again, I love doing different formats, and so this was basically, I specifically told her to do this. I said, now, do this as safely as you can. Basically, I don't want to be responsible for you having any type of
Right.
wreck, but if you can take the camera and you can drive to that spot and basically reenact, just tell what you saw, showing the bridge, showing the location, because she was experiencing this from her car. So I wanted it to be very, first person almost point of view. And for this individual, basically, yeah, we had to set up the bunny man and that whole urban legend. You just kind of have to. But the story's not even about the bunny man. It's more about the fact that she tops the hill driving towards it, and standing in the middle of the road is this gal in all black attire. Like, just there, as solid as can be, middle of the road, basically looking at her, not really an expression. And she's like, kind of zips on past her, and she's kind of like starts moving out of the road. And she's like, okay, wait a minute. Hold on a second. This is just too weird. Why is this woman in this whole crazy, head to toe kind of gown type of thing, basically in the middle of the road? Comes back, nowhere to be seen. And I'm like, so time out a second. There's no bushes, there's house, whatever. She's like, sure, there's some stuff. In that amount of time, there, even if she sprinted, basically, there's no way that she could have completely vanished. And I'm
Wow.
like, okay, that's weird. Not
Yep.
sure what you saw. She certainly still wasn't. But hey, there's a lady in black at the Bunnyman Bridge that no
I,
one else apparently has experienced.
well, we're kind of used to those because UFO people, almost all of them, aren't prepared for when they see it, and they go, "Oh, look at that! Oh my goodness!" and forget to take a video.
Yes, yeah, it's classic. Or how someone always say, "Why does it look so terrible?" And you almost want to say, "Listen, you put yourself in a situation, and if you basically have enough thought to grab your phone, to fumble around, to turn it on, to
right.
try to find it, basically, what do you think
And,
it's
and
going to
then
look like?"
and then they
Right.
try to zoom in. It's
Hmm.
night. Focus doesn't work, and you get a blur.
Right.
Yeah.
People like to make fun of that, but it's like, I mean, come on, you got to give them points for at least getting that much, basically,
Yeah.
because
I want
otherwise,
it. Yeah.
you know, sometimes you're in awe of like, what? I should take a picture. I should get a video of this.
Mhm.
Yep. I don't even bother picking up my camera. I'll look. I don't want to miss it.
Well, yeah, you soak it all in there basically because yeah, you spend so much time trying to do that, you'll miss everything, and that actually goes. Hey, aren't we kind of, that's a little bit of a, forgetting my word here, basically, but it's a little bit of an indicator of life today where it's like, you've got beauty all around you, and okay, I'm on my phone and I'm, looking at something, and it's like, come on,
Right.
you're missing out on something here. You can get on the
Right.
phone anytime. You're not going to see whatever this is going on again,
Well,
possibly.
my favorite story that's like that is we were driving home from one of her art gigs,
Hmm.
and we were about to enter Harford County, and across the road in front of us flew a cylindrical UFO that went from, I thought at first it was an airplane coming from BWI. I went, wait a minute, that can't be from BWI. We aren't in the glide path. But anyway, got across the road. It was, like here, was moving pretty fast, but not ridiculous.
Right.
And I says, oh man, let me get my camera. Look down, got my phone, put it up, and it was gone.
Mhm.
Wow.
Marty,
Wow.
Marty said he took 2 bad pictures of his 2015 sighting in Los Angeles. It's still 2 pictures. I mean, that's good.
Marty and Lala and I went to the desert last May in Reno, and we saw 24 craft in the sky.
Wow.
Yeah.
I sat in the car because I was freezing.
But
so,
that's all right. Marty and I saw him.
yeah.
Right. Well, we while we're on that, we kind of have to, I have to ask it. I'll let y'all be the guest on your own show for a second. Then basically, I'm sure you've talked about this already, but drones. What's up with all that? Which now you don't hear about it at all. It's all gone. You don't hear about anything.
Mhm.
Oh no, it's still here. People have just stopped
That's what
pointing their
yeah,
cameras.
that's what I
Mhm.
mean.
So it's still going on. My
Mhm.
son still sees them. He lives in New Jersey,
Okay.
and they're still on the television. You got to be looking at News Nation and listen to Ross Coulthart, but then you'll hear about it all over the place because they're the only network covering it.
All the others have moved on to the next.
Yeah, they've moved on because the election, the inauguration, Biden talked the Israelis and the Palestinians into a ceasefire, and stuff happens. The
Exactly.
Ukraine war is still going on. They're busy,
Exactly. Mm-hmm.
but it's still going on here. And Ross is coming out. This for those of you who are UFOers. Ross is bringing a brand new whistleblower who gives his name and has his witnesses who are also in the military with him. Helicopter pilot. They saw an egg-shaped UFO on the ground, sat down near it and investigated it. And so there you go. That'll be coming out all over this weekend.
Wow. Nice. Yeah, that's where you do get to the very simple realization in that there is way too many things happening, or even if you just let's just back it all the way up for a galaxy, for a universe to be as large as it is, and for there not to be other life is just redonkulous, basically. So
If I wrote down one with enough zeros beyond it
mhm,
to number the galaxies in the universe, people couldn't look at that number and tell you what to call it. It's so
exactly
big.
right.
And each of those things has between a few billion and a trillion stars in them.
Hmm.
And that now known average is every star has a planet around.
Hmm.
I mean, if we are alone, it's scary that
Yeah,
we are not taking better care of this place.
there you go.
And if we're not alone and they're everywhere, that could be a delight. Who
Hmm.
knows?
Exactly. Exactly.
Okay. We have like 12 more minutes, so I want to ask something real quick.
Okay.
Um, you're talking about the thing falling on the ceiling. Have
Mhm.
you had people tell you stories of them with exorcisms or like incubus or anything like that?
Yeah. So when we get into, this again lays into you're probably gathering I have some strong opinions on this, but it's kind of like a lot of people using the D word and how everything is a demon. And it's
Right.
like, okay, so for marketing purposes, hey, it's a great word and it's scary, and you can have all sorts of imagery behind this. And oh my goodness, I've gotten scratched, and there's 3 scratches, so it's got to be a demon. And I'm like, okay, time out.
Right.
Just because you've had something and it's scary, does not mean let's not jump all the way into this
Right.
presumption. You could have someone who is just really just kind of a nasty person. If they were a nasty person in life, they'll be a nasty person in death. And maybe they said, you know what, you look like you should be scratched. It's like don't jump to assumptions. We have not actually had, although when we were doing our live show and I've connected with so many different people in the community who have had truly demonic experiences. That's why I feel like those are very rare. I also look at with myself and my faith. Basically, it's kind of like if I'm going to walk into a situation, before we do an investigation, we pray over the team and everyone before we go in and after we leave. Basically, that's just part of our exercise of making sure we're protected going in and we're protected going out. And I know basically if my discernment is going to be if something is really dangerous and off, I'm the type to where I'd be like, no, no,
Sure.
that would be for me a we're not going to mess with that. It's kind of like one of our rules would be we're not really interested in dealing with Ouija boards. Now that's
Yeah.
kind of a bit of a not necessarily a hot topic, but it's certainly one people have different views on it. My personal thought on that would be if you have a device that the whole purpose of it is allowing an entity to interact with you and move you, physically interact with. I kind of got a problem with that because you don't know what you're dealing with, and so that's where, even if, viewing myself as, okay, I'm protected. I don't have to worry about it. I'm protected. Well, that's kind of like saying basically, well, yeah, I'm a Christ follower, but I'm going to walk out in the middle of the street because I'm not going to get run over by a car.
Right. Yep.
Kind of got a brain to know that that's not how it works. So same difference, basically. You need to have guardrails and boundaries
Yeah.
for when you're doing this. So that's why we haven't encountered anything that dark. The closest thing I would say to anything dark to wrap that up would be in Alton, Illinois, when we were at the and I'm going a little blank on the name. Someone in chat may be able to help me because I want to say it's like spring water. It's like a hotel, and it's pretty popular for like locations. The name
Okay.
is not in my head at the moment. That one I think is a classic case where people have done so many stupid things going there that they have left portals open. And I know that Darren and I were on the edge of stuff to where I'm like, okay, we're good, but we're done. It's time to leave. This is not a cool place to hang out, kind of thing.
Right.
Yeah, I just do not understand amateurs going in, opening a place up, and then leaving it wide open.
Yeah. Yeah. Because I think, and that's where the concept is like, if people don't appreciate how real a portal is, and it's like, no, it's not fantasy, and it's with the intention, and if it's open, well, now at that point, anything can come through at any point. So and it goes back to one's intentions too. If you coming in and your intention is to cause harm and to stir things up and cause a ruckus, well, then that's probably what's going to happen. But if you come in with good intentions and you're leaving a place like you found it, and you're coming in peace and you're leaving in peace, well, then yeah, you're. It's kind of that whole light attracts light, dark attracts dark.
Absolutely.
Well, and if you go to a place like a prison where people are on death row, or you go to a well-known asylum for the totally mad, don't expect it to be peaceful.
Exactly. I think again, some people, hey, even myself, I think of when we went to Forest Haven in Laurel. I'm a bit of an urbexer. I like kind of like a decay of what something used to be, and again, document it before it's torn down, document it before it completely collapses on itself. But again, you have these locations, and I've told people to where it's like, think about it like this. You have abandoned spaces which gets used then by homeless, drug addicts, a lot of folks, and I'm not saying anything derogatory about them. In some cases, life it's been unfortunate basically. But the point is, it's bad things basically are living there. That's going to attract bad things to make their life worse, to feed off that. So now you're coming in like, hey, let's have a scary time. And it's like, yeah, that's also how stuff attaches to you.
Exactly.
And then you wonder, why does my life suck? It's like, well, yeah, you have an attachment because you were acting like a nincompoop.
Oh yeah, attachments are common. I had attachment for a couple of years. I didn't even know.
Really?
I mean,
yeah.
It's common. It's crazy. Anyway, yeah. Hold on. Old Al, he keeps. Hold on. This whole planet is as haunted.
I gotta tell you, I'm not sure that's true because look, my kids and I, we went over there and just walk around, It's the late afternoon. It goes into dusk just about tonight. And we could hear the cannon firing. And we walked around a little while. We saw full-bodied apparitions with their rifles on their shoulder walking through the field, and we could hear the firing of the gun.
Ooh, see, now this is where it's a shame, but oh, looky here. So that's some real chills going on right there, basically.
Oh, yeah.
So, this is where I'm like,
Gettysburg is a place. If you're not serious,
You got a
don't go.
visitor? He's got something there.
I was about to say, it's moments like that to where, and this is when I stop, because having been to Gettysburg, yes, that's freaky. But also when I get the, full arm hairs going on, I don't dismiss that, because it's like, yeah, it could be creepy, but it also could be someone saying, yo, hey, what's up? What's going on here? What you doing?
Right. Yeah. Oh, yeah.
All right. Well, Rick, tell us where we have almost 300 people, almost 300 people watching. So tell these 300 people where they can follow you and what you got coming up next.
And you got to come back.
And you got to come back.
I would love to. This has been fun. We just kind of scratched the surface. Well, so the channel where most of our newest content is at, that's on our YouTube channel, youtube.com/unexplained cases. Our website, unexplainedcases.com, has all that content. It also has, unfortunately, lower quality because, well, we are talking 2000 to 2004 here. Keep that in mind. Has all of our other cases on it are there. We're on Instagram at Unexplained Cases, TikTok, Facebook. X, unfortunately, is the only one, which is Unexplained Case. There wasn't enough characters for the S, so I'm just a singular case. What do you know? But as far as what working on right now, I'm actually trying to wrap up the aforementioned Savage Mill story. So I feel like that is going to be documentary size, the next drop on the YouTube channel. Unless something else comes along, because I also have a cold case I'm actually going to be videoing this weekend out in the Kent Island area. So that may supersede it. We don't know, basically. Like I said, I kind of, as the spirit leads.
I've done a fair amount of work behind closed and locked gates on Kent Island. I like the place.
Oh, see, I'm thinking basically you're probably like me. You're a cesspool of knowledge, and that's a compliment. So yes,
something like that.
Everybody, thank you for being here tonight. Thank you, Rick, for being a great guest. And we will look and have everyone back again. Everybody go check out Lala's page or our Orbis Paranormal page on Facebook. You can see who we got coming up this month and next. And take care, and we will be back with you next Tuesday. Rick, good night.
Good night.